Simplicity, consistency, priority in images. Look at this image. I've seen these with PhDs where this is literally what I see on a slide deck. And I go, you really want them to understand every single thing on this slide. And they're like, well, I mean, it's important. I'm like, is it really though? Is it really important for them to understand every single thing? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, no, probably not. I'm like, well, let's just pick a few things here that they absolutely have to know on the first date, right? What's going to get them interested in this? Don't put these giant complicated diagrams on your slide deck. So what I do with these graphs is I try to get much simpler, right? With flow charts. But what happens is I see people that will go do them and they'll do them in very small sizes. If you notice here, like it's not necessarily bad, but it's very small and hard to read. So I usually like to go with big, bold, very graphic, that you would see. Not that you would actually do the same style, but there's a reason why in kids' books, right? Anybody who has kids in these big books, that they're big, easy to understand diagrams, right? Using big fonts and big objects to understand that. So they're not like, squinting their eyes and not sure how things work. So make sure that you're using a big enough font on these diagrams or they're not going to understand what you're doing while you're presenting. And again, you can use the grid. So even here, I'm like, I want this to look very even. I want it to look organized and aligned. Then I'm just going to apply a grid to it. And there it even gets more organized and easier to understand. And if you look here, if you look how they've done it here with images, they've talked about how it works. Like these diagrams are used often in solution slides. So if you look here, let's go down to here, right here, how it works. Tell us the snacks you enjoy, image. We'll handpick a box for you, image, and send it to your work or home, image, right? Very easy to do. Same with Birchbox. Personalized, delivered to your door, and you discover, right? So it's very easy to use images to talk about a sequence in your solution. If you look at this one, the same thing, Dewalt. Now, I would say this is not the best looking slide, but you can see they're using these images to come down through and actually show a sequence in how this thing go. I would say these fonts should be a little bit bigger. But again, this is way better than this, right? So simplify these diagrams. They do not have to be super complicated. One big faux pas, so we're done talking about diagrams. I see this all the time. I don't know why it is, but I see people using background images all the time. I see it all the time. I don't know why. Background images, you can use them, but this is how you could use them, like this. They are a subtle emotional signal. They're not the thing. This is competing. If these images are competing with each other, it doesn't create simplicity. It creates chaos. Here, the image, delight is our goal, is actually pretty nice, but with the person behind it, with the high energy, right? With the peace signs and the mouth open, super excited, it creates a subtle emotional cue that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that image. So usually what I'll do is make them a little bit opaque, put them on a dark or a white background and lay things on top. They should not compete. They should complement these background images. The other thing too I see with images is people are not organizing them in the grid. So I'll see team slides like this. And I'm like, well, is Carla like more important than Aspen? Like, why is this one bigger than the other two? When really, if they were aligned in a grid to keep it organized, that creates a much different slide than this. You're not quite sure why that is like that. So using the alignment, and it creates a lot better thing. Same way with images in your grid. Again, I'm using grids all the time with images. So I'm putting an image over here and an image over here, and it looks great, right? They're not competing with each other. They're complementing each other. And all I did was throw it into a grid. Now, the consistency part of this, I see this happen with icons. Pick one icon set and go with it. Each one of these icon sets, and again, this is super small detail, but getting it right creates a very strong professional looking deck. these are all solid color icons, right? They all have the same style. These are all outlined ones. These are all illustrated ones, and you use those throughout the entire presentation. So you use the same set. And I'll give you some examples through the end of this section of like where you can go get those icons in a set. And that way, then they're consistent throughout the whole thing. The other thing too is when you're using illustrations, look at, if I'm using this on one slide, I'm using an image, and then I'm using this illustration, and then I have this. They're all different styles. So it creates an inconsistent image approach that looks unprofessional. Instead of like, hey, if I'm going to use images, they're all going to be kind of the same vibe. They're all going to be some of the same color. In fact, you can go, what I do oftentimes is when I'm going to Unsplash and I type in like house, if you go up to here and click the color and I click, if my brand color is red, that's how I'm going to do it. So I can get some pictures that are matching, you know, consistent color wise. Like all these kind of have the same feel. If I wanted, looks like they don't have purple. But yeah, so that's where I'll get like a lot of these have the same feeling, very consistent. So that's what I want in my images. Now, if I want illustrations, I also want consistent illustrations. I don't want hand-drawn one mixed with other ones. And it feels very inconsistent. Okay. So then here are the different resources you can get images: Unsplash, Pexels, Pixabay for images. These illustrations, my favorite is Undraw. If you go to undraw.com, the cool thing about this for illustrations is if I go in here, I can see all my illustrations, but my brand color is red. It all of a sudden now changes all of these to red. And now I have very consistent illustrations that I can use in my slide deck that all look great together. So I don't have some that are blue and some that are orange, some that are green or whatever. So that helps with that. And then the noun project, I love flat icon and icon finder. So like when you go to the noun project, I use this like all the time. And I can see here, if I type in check mark, I can start to see it. And then I can go and look at families of check marks that are all from the same illustrator, all for free. Another good one I don't have on this list is hero icons are also really great. There's a whole bunch of really consistent ones there. So try to make it consistent. And the last one, priority. Look at this image. They're both competing for attention, right? Make it bigger. If you have the image there and you wanted to make a bold statement, then bring it out more, right? If it's a burger, then it's going to be big and in your face. I did a slide deck for a company that's going competing with Beyond Meat. And I'm like, no, you got to get the burger really big. I want to see the juicy details, right? So give them the juicy details. If you look here, imagine if the chart was like this, like you're kind of squinting, like make it bigger, bring it up, make it bold, make it easy to see from a distance. That's the mistake I see people using with images all the time. They don't make them big enough. The one mistake I see with people using icons is they would do these giant icons, but the icons, illustrations tell you way more than icons do. Icons are just there as pepper or salt on your meat or on your salad or on whatever. It's not the thing. So what I do is make these icons, they're not the star of the show. The title is the star of the show. And these are just the little condiments on the side that just give it a little spice, right? So don't go crazy with giant icons. You can go big with the illustrations and the diagrams, but the icons, you don't want to make them really big because all I see here is a rocket ship. I don't really know what that means until I see launch data.